My name is Rebecca Talbot. I'm 38 years old, and this happened 8 weeks ago, on my daughter Ella's 8th birthday. For a long time, I believed that no matter what else fell apart in life, family would be the last line of defense. The net that would catch you when you'd lost everything else. 8 months ago, I learned you can be wrong about everything at once. 8 months ago, a drunk driver ended my husband's life. His name was Christopher. He was 36. We had a whole future mapped out in messy notes on our kitchen whiteboard. Vacations we'd never take, weekend projects we'd never start, arguments we'd never finish. He was on his way home from the night shift when the call came. I still remember that night. 2:07 a.m., the phone vibrating on the nightstand. Me, squinting at the screen, expecting a text. On my way. Love you. Instead, a number I didn't recognize. Instead, a calm voice introducing himself as a police officer. Instead, the sound of my own breathing getting loud and distant in my ears, as if I were walking out of my body. They said the words drunk driver and head-on collision and we're so sorry, ma'am. All I could think was, who's going to make Ella's pancakes in the shape of animals now? Who's going to remember her medication schedule when I forget? Since that night, it's just been me and Ella. Just the two of us against everything. And everything includes her kidneys. Ella has early-stage chronic kidney disease. She was diagnosed when she turned 4. That sounds clinical when I say it fast, but in real life it looks like this. Every meal measured and weighed, salt counted like enemy soldiers, no processed foods, no mystery snacks at school. Other kids lick the frosting off cupcakes. My daughter watches and smiles, pretending she isn't curious. Christopher used to handle her diet. He had charts and apps and sticky notes. He could look at a plate and calculate sodium in his head. When he died, I lost my husband, my co-parent, and my human calculator all at once. Working, taking care of Ella, managing her medication, learning to cook all over again. There were days I felt like I was just a body moving through tasks on autopilot, breathing out of habit, not intention. And then I did something I never thought I'd do. I forgot my daughter's birthday. 2 weeks before Ella turned 8, my younger sister Courtney called me. Her name popped up on the screen while I was standing in the kitchen, staring blankly at a pot of boiling pasta and trying to remember if I'd already added salt or not. I picked up. "Hey," I said, stirring the pot like it mattered. Her voice was too bright. "Becca, have you, planned anything for Ella's birthday yet? You know there's like 10 days left, right?" I froze with the spoon in my hand. 10 days. 10 days. Those words were a punch to the chest. My brain scrambled through dates, therapy appointments, follow-ups with Ella's nephrologist, rent day, payroll at work, and then stopped on that one little square on the calendar I hadn't circled. I had forgotten. I, the mother, the only parent she had left, had let the date float past me like just another Tuesday. Christopher had never forgotten. He used to start planning a month in advance, hiding little clues around the house for Ella to find. He'd stay up until 2 a.m. blowing balloons, because it has to be the right shade of pastel pink, not that ugly rose pink. He cared about shades of pink. And I couldn't even remember the day. Maybe Courtney heard my silence through the phone because she jumped in quickly, her voice suddenly soft and helpful. "How about I handle it? You're swamped, Becca. You're still, not okay. I'm free. I'll organize the whole party at Mom and Dad's place. Food, decorations, everything. You just bring Ella. Let me take something off your plate." There are moments in grief when relief is so tempting, you stop asking questions. This was one of them. I exhaled shakily, my throat tight. "Are you sure?" "Of course," she answered immediately. "Just send me money for the budget and that list of what Ella can and can't eat. I'll take care of it, I promise." That word, promise, landed like a warm blanket on my exhausted brain. I transferred $1,800 to her that night. More than I should have, but it was Ella's first birthday without her dad. I wanted it to be special. I wrote up a detailed list of safe foods for her kidneys: low sodium, low animal protein, no processed junk, no soda, and texted it to Courtney. She left me on scene for 2 minutes. Then, "Got it, don't worry, sis." Looking back, handing $1,800 and my daughter's health to my little sister was like asking a cat to guard a plate of fish. Anyone could have seen the problem, but I wanted to believe that, for once, someone else in the family would show up for us. The party was set for 2 p.m. at my parents' house in the Columbus suburbs. Mom and Dad were driving to Cleveland early that morning to visit a seriously ill aunt, planning to race back just in time for the party. At 1:30 p.m., I buckled Ella into the back seat of our car in the Clintonville apartment parking lot. She wore a pink dress, the exact shade her dad always picked. Pastel, not rose. Her choice. Daddy's color, she'd said when we pulled it out of the closet. He always wore pink on my birthday. I caught her eyes in the rearview mirror as we pulled onto State Route 3. Big, dark, hopeful. "Mom?" she asked. "Do you think there'll be balloons? And a princess cake? Daddy used to make princess cakes for me." I forced a smile. "You'll see when we get there. Aunt Courtney's organizing everything." Inside, I was praying, not to any specific God, just to the idea that maybe, just this once, things would go right. For the first time in 8 months, I allowed myself to hope that we could have one normal day. One day where my daughter wasn't the sick kid or the girl with the dead dad. Just Ella, the birthday girl. When I turned onto Maple Lane, the familiar street leading to my parents' 2-story wooden house, I rolled down the window a little, expecting to hear kids laughing or cheesy party music. Instead, I heard loud country rock blasting from the backyard. Not Baby Shark, not a Disney soundtrack. Full volume, beer commercial country rock. My stomach dropped. When I pulled into the gravel driveway, the first thing I saw on the front porch wasn't balloons or a Happy Birthday Ella banner. It was 3 giant ice coolers lined up like soldiers, lids propped open, absolutely stuffed with beer cans. Bud Light, cheap lagers, aluminum glinting in the sun. Something inside me went very, very still. I got out of the car in slow motion and walked around to open Ella's door. She hopped out, clutching the little stuffed unicorn Christopher had bought her at a fair 2 years ago. "Wow, Mom, they brought a lot of drinks," she said, squinting at the coolers. "Is that for the parents?" "I don't know," I answered honestly. We followed the music around the side of the house into the backyard. My feet stopped dead at the gate. This was not a children's birthday party. This was a backyard hangout for people who didn't have to wake up early. 2 long tables pushed together, covered in beer cans and bottles. More coolers. Giant platters of grilled meat. Pork ribs dripping with sauce. Thick slabs of brisket. Burgers covered in melted cheese. The air was heavy with smoke and grease. Not a single balloon. No banner. No gift table. No paper plates with cartoon princesses. Just about 15 strangers in their early 20s, laughing loudly, every one of them holding a beer. I felt $800 evaporate into smoke and foam right in front of me. Next to the smoking grill, my sister Courtney stood with a beer in her hand, head thrown back, laughing at something a tall guy in a backwards cap had just said. She didn't notice us. Not her sister, not her niece, whose name was technically on this party. Ella's small hand tightened around mine. I felt her body lean closer. "Mom," she whispered, "where's my birthday party?" Her voice went straight through my chest. I scanned the yard again, desperately searching for any sign that I was misreading this. A stack of wrapped presents, a corner with games, a cake box, anything. Nothing. Before I could move, cars started pulling up out front, parents dropping off kids. One by one, little bodies ran past us into the yard and then stopped short, eyes wide as they took in the scene. "Why are there so many beer cans?" one boy asked. "Is this even a birthday party?" Hannah, Ella's best friend, said out loud. Ella stared at the ground. Her shoulders hunched the way they do when she's bracing for blood tests at the hospital. Something hot and sharp rose in my throat. I let go of her hand and walked straight toward Courtney. She finally noticed me when I was close enough to smell the beer on her breath. She smiled, like she hadn't just hijacked my daughter's birthday. "Becca, you made it!" she shouted over the music. "Isn't this great? Barbecue, music, a big yard, kids can run around. Everybody wins." I forced my voice to stay level. "Where's Ella's party, Courtney? Where's the food she can eat?" She rolled her eyes slightly, waving her beer can. "This is the party. Come on. Kids love running around. They'll be fine, and sooner or later, they're all going to be at parties like this anyway." I swallowed hard. "Her diet, Courtney. The list I sent you. Did you read it?" Courtney turned and pointed vaguely at the far end of the table. "There's salad over there. Greens are healthy. She can eat that." I followed her finger. A limp bowl of lettuce buried under bacon bits and cheese. Bacon, cheese, salt, and fat. 2 things that do Ella's kidneys absolutely no favors. I stared at that bowl and had the absurd thought that this must be what it feels like to watch someone hand peanuts to a kid with a peanut allergy and say, "Relax, it's just a little." I opened my mouth to say something, but Ella beat me to it. She had slipped away from my side and run to the food table. I watched her weave between adults, her eyes scanning desperately for something that just wasn't there. "The cake," She'd been talking about a princess cake for 10 days. She stopped in front of the table and turned to Courtney, hope shining in her eyes. "Aunt Courtney, where's my birthday cake?" she asked. Courtney glanced at her for exactly 1 second. Then she shrugged, as if someone had asked her where she'd put an old magazine. "Oh, I forgot," she said. "But you're sick like that. What's the point of eating so much? Just wastes money. Let your mom handle it." She turned back to her conversation before the words had even finished leaving her mouth. For her, it was one careless sentence. For my daughter, it was a slap. I watched the moment it hit. Ella's face froze. Her lips pressed together, her chin trembled. Her eyes filled slowly, like someone turning on a faucet inside her. Around us, the kids started whispering. "Why doesn't she have a cake? What kind of party is this?" "Ella, it's your birthday, right? How come there's nothing?" Ella didn't say a word. She just walked back to me, small and quiet, and slipped behind my back like she was trying to disappear. Her voice, when it came, was so soft I almost didn't hear it over the music. "Mom," she whispered, "is it because I'm sick that Aunt Courtney doesn't love me?" Everything inside me went silent. In that second, I saw every hospital visit, every needle Ella didn't cry over, every treat she'd smiled and refused because she was being strong. I saw Christopher standing in our kitchen at 1 a.m., sticking little pink balloons to the ceiling with tape, saying, "She deserves one day where the universe bends around her, not the other way around." And now my own sister had told my child, in front of her friends, that she was not worth the price of a cake. Something in me broke. I stood up. One step toward the table and my hands started to shake. Second step, and my heartbeat pounded in my ears louder than the music. By the third step, I knew I was about to do something I couldn't take back, and I didn't care. "I wish I could tell you," I screamed, that I unleashed every ugly word I had stored up from 8 months of grief and exhaustion. But I didn't. I went quiet. I walked up to the long table loaded with ribs and burgers and beer, picked up the nearest platter of meat, and tipped it straight into the trash bin. The ribs slid off in a greasy avalanche. The smell of barbecue sauce rose up, sweet and sickening. A girl standing nearby gasped. One of the guys cursed under his breath. I didn't look at any of them. I reached for the next tray. Burgers this time, cheese still melting, into the trash. Then the bowl of bacon cheese salad. Then the hot dogs. Every plate that had eaten up my daughter's party budget. Every can that had replaced balloons and cake. Methodical, one by one, no yelling, no explanations. "Hey, what are you doing?" Courtney's voice finally cut through the music. She rushed over, grabbing my wrist as I lifted another platter. "Rebecca, are you crazy?" she shouted. "Do you know how much all this cost?" I turned to her, and, for the first time that day, I let the anger show. "Whose money?" I asked. The words came out sharper than I intended, a clean, hard edge. The backyard went strangely quiet. People were still talking, but their voices felt distant. The music kept playing, but it might as well have been underwater. "Whose money, Courtney?" I repeated. "You took $1-800 I gave you for Ella's birthday, and you bought a bar for your friends." She rolled her eyes like I was being dramatic. "Oh my God, Becca, calm down. It's just food. The kids can eat this too. Stop making everything about—" I cut her off. "She can't eat this. You know she can't. I sent you a list. You read it. You ignored it." Courtney crossed her arms, beer can still in her hand, like an accessory. "She's always on some kind of special diet. It's not that big a deal. There's salad covered in bacon and cheese," I snapped. "You might as well have marinated it in battery acid." Behind me, I heard kids rustling, metal cans clinking as someone shifted. I could feel their eyes on my back, the way you can feel rain before it hits your skin. Courtney flicked her hair over her shoulder. "You're overreacting. The kids will play. They'll be fine. Not everything has to be a hospital room for your precious Ella." I actually felt something inside my chest tear at that. The precious hung in the air like an insult. I took a step toward her. "You told her she wasn't worth a cake because she's sick," I said quietly. "You told her spending money on her was a waste." Courtney opened her mouth, but nothing came out. "She just asked me if you don't love her because of her kidneys," I added. That landed. For a second, I saw something flicker in Courtney's eyes. Guilt? Shame? It flashed too fast, smothered under defensiveness and the comfort of being surrounded by drinking buddies who didn't know the whole story. "I was just being honest," she snapped back. "She can't eat cake anyway. Why pretend? Why throw money at sugar she can't even have?" The worst thing about that sentence was that part of it was technically true. Ella couldn't eat regular cake. But it wasn't about cake. It was about effort. About love measured in thoughtfulness, not calories. You don't get it, I said. You never had to. Mom and Dad never made you. That struck a nerve. Her jaw tightened. Are you really doing this now? She hissed. In front of everyone? I looked around. The everyone she meant were 12 strangers, clutching beers like shields, some of them slowly edging toward the side gate. Kids stood off to one side in a loose cluster, confusion written all over their faces. And then there was Ella. She stood near the back porch steps, hands clenched around the ears of her stuffed unicorn. Hannah's arm was looped through hers, like she was anchoring her in place. My daughter's face was blank in that way that isn't calm, just shut down. I'd seen that expression in hospital beds. I was still staring at her when the sound came, the low rumble of a truck engine pulling into the driveway out front. Charles's blue pickup. The music kept thudding, but in my head, everything went slow. I heard the engine cut off, the slam of 2 doors, footsteps on gravel, the squeak of the gate. My parents stepped into the backyard and froze. Charles went statue still, hands in the pockets of his worn work jeans. He looked around slowly, the trash cans overflowing with food, the tables littered with cans, strangers shrinking into corners, his granddaughter with red eyes, his eldest daughter in the middle of the yard with her hands shaking, and his youngest, Courtney, clutching a beer like it might save her. My mom, Sandra, took one look at Ella and didn't hesitate. She crossed the yard in 3 long strides, knelt down, and pulled Ella into her arms. "Sweetheart, what's wrong?" she asked softly. "Why are you crying? Who made you cry?" Ella didn't answer. She just buried her face in Grandma's chest and shook. Sandra's eyes lifted to mine, searching for answers. She didn't need many words. I took a breath that tasted like ash and explained. The money, the party, the cake that didn't exist, the sentence about not wasting money on a sick child. For a second after I finished, my mother didn't move. I saw her jaw lock, tight in a way I'd only seen once before, years ago, when she found out Dad had fallen from a roof at work and hadn't called anyone for help for 6 hours because he didn't want to bother people. Sandra stood up slowly, one arm still around Ella's shoulders. Charles still hadn't said a word. He stepped further into the yard. The music seemed to lower itself out of respect. His gaze swept the scene again, the beer coolers, the strangers, his crying granddaughter. Then it landed on Courtney. She flinched like someone had turned a spotlight on her. "Anyone who wasn't invited by me or Sandra," Charles said quietly, "get out of my house." He didn't shout, he didn't need to. A guy in a backwards cap, the one Courtney had been laughing with, scoffed. "Hey, old man, we're guests," he said. "Courtney invited us. You can't just—" Charles turned his head and looked at him. That was it, just a look. 40 years of hauling lumber, of balancing on scaffolding, of dealing with stubborn clients and lazier-than-sin apprentices had carved a certain weight into his face, the kind of weight that says, "I am absolutely not kidding." The guy's voice died in his throat. "I said," Charles repeated, not raising his volume, "get out of my house." No one argued after that. In less than a minute, the backyard turned into a clumsy stampede, people grabbing bags, tripping over chair legs, leaving half-finished drinks sweating on the table. Someone knocked over a folding chair. Someone left a purse on the bench and had to dart back in, cheeks burning, to grab it. The kids watched, eyes wide, like they were seeing a cartoon battle scene in slow motion. Courtney stood frozen in the middle, staring at her departing friends with disbelief. "Wait. Hey, guys," she stammered. "You don't have to, Dad. What are you doing?" Nobody answered her. When the last car door slammed and the gate clicked shut, the silence that fell over the yard felt heavier than the music ever had. Courtney spun toward my father. "You can't just kick them out like that," she snapped. "It was my party too." Charles took a step closer until he was standing just in front of her. "Do you want to go with them?" he asked. The way he said it made the hairs on my arms stand up. Not a threat, a question, a line on the ground. Courtney's mouth opened and closed. I live here," she stuttered. Sandra cut in, her voice low but razor sharp. "Courtney, go inside the house, now. We'll talk later." I'd heard my mother use that tone on misbehaving toddlers, never on a 24-year-old. Courtney looked between them, at Dad's cold stare, at Mom's trembling fury, at me, at Ella's small form still tucked against Grandma's side. She seemed to realize there wasn't a single ally standing with her right now. She turned and stomped toward the back door, slamming it so hard the window glass rattled. The echo of it made Ella flinch. For a second, the only sound in the yard was the buzz of a fly near the grill and the faint hum of the neighbor's lawnmower a few houses down. I looked at my parents. I could see the years on them all at once. The gray threaded through Dad's hair, the faint veins on Mom's hands. They were tired. They didn't need this fight. But here we were. Sandra bent down and tilted Ella's chin up gently. "Ella, sweetheart," she said, her voice suddenly soft and steady. "I'm so sorry. What happened today should never have been allowed to happen. And I promise you this, your birthday is not ruined. Do you trust Grandma?" Ella sniffled. Her eyes were swollen, but there was still a tiny spark in them. She nodded. Sandra straightened up and looked at Charles and me with a focus I hadn't seen in years. "We have work to do," she said. "Rebecca, call someone who can bring balloons and decorations here in 20 minutes. Charles, call Mike. Tell him I need kid-friendly food. I'll handle the cake shop." And just like that, my parents, the same people who had spent years cushioning Courtney from consequences, moved as if someone had pulled an emergency switch. Charles pulled his phone from his pocket and dialed without hesitation. "Mike," he said the moment the line connected, "my granddaughter has kidney problems. I need bland food. Fresh cheese pizza with vegetables, grilled chicken, and fruit. No junk. Can you get it to my place in 20 minutes? I could hear the muffled voice on the other end, surprised and then warm. "For your granddaughter? 15, Mike said. "I'll send my boy with the truck." Sandra already had her phone to her ear. "Lisa, it's Sandra," she said. "I need a birthday cake. Low sugar, princess theme, delivered in 25 minutes. "Yes, I know, it's crazy. But my granddaughter's party just got hijacked and I'm taking it back." On my end, I scrolled through contacts with fingers that still shook and hit a familiar name. Tommy, an old college friend who now ran a small event company. He picked up on the second ring. "Becca, long time. I need everything you can throw in a car in 15 minutes, I blurted. "Balloons, banners, whatever you've got in stock that says birthday and doesn't scream bachelor party. My parents' place. It's for Ella." There was the briefest pause. Then, "I'm on my way." While the adults scrambled on the phones, something else started happening in the middle of the yard. The kids moved. Nobody told them to. Nobody asked. A red-haired boy picked up a trash bag and started tossing empty beer cans into it like it was a game. Two girls folded the greasy tablecloths as best they could. Another kid dragged chairs into a neat line against the fence. Hannah squeezed Ella's hand and looked at her with the kind of certainty only children have. "We're going to fix your party, okay?" she said. "You're the princess. Princesses always get a good party in the end." Ella inhaled shakily, then nodded. For the first time that day, the corners of her mouth twitched upward. Watching all of that, something in my chest loosened. Not the grief, not the anger at Courtney, but a tiny knot of fear that maybe this day was beyond saving. Maybe it wasn't. We were about to find out. Tommy arrived first. I heard the rumble of his van before I saw it. Then he swung into the driveway like a man delivering organs on ice. The side door slid open, and he stepped out holding 2 overstuffed bags of balloons, metallic streamers, and a silver happy birthday banner so long it brushed the ground. He didn't ask questions, didn't comment on the beer cans still scattered in the grass. He simply took one look at Ella, her cheeks still puffy from crying, and said, "Princess party emergency? Say no more." Charles joined him instantly. Even at 61, he moved with the efficient, quiet confidence of a man who had fixed more broken things than he'd ever brag about. His big hands tied knots, straightened poles, tightened banner strings. Every gesture was steady, purposeful. Meanwhile, Sandra became a general. "Kids, chairs in 3 rows, no wobbling legs. Ella, sweetheart, come help me choose balloon colors." Her voice was brisk, but the tenderness wrapped around every syllable. Ella picked pastel pink and soft purple, Christopher's favorite combination. While they worked, I found myself kneeling on the grass, blowing up balloons until my fingers ached. Ella sat next to me, her knees tucked under her dress as she held each balloon in her small hands, inspecting it like it might float away if she looked away too long. "Mom," she whispered once, "this is better, right?" I swallowed the knot in my throat and kissed the side of her head. "It's going to be perfect." 15 minutes later, Mike's delivery truck rolled in. His son, barely 20, hair tousled, apron still dusted with flour, carried trays of food like precious cargo. "Your dad said light seasoning, no junk," he said seriously. "So we made vegetable pizzas with fresh mozzarella, grilled chicken skewers, and fruit platters shaped like rainbows." Sandra clasped her hands in delight. "Bless you, child. Set them on the table. And take a slice of pizza before you go. We're not monsters." 5 minutes after that, the cake arrived. Lisa, from the same bakery Christopher and I used to order from, pulled up in her little blue Prius and stepped out with a cake box nestled in her arms like it was an infant. "I used your old order notes," she told me, lowering her voice. "Low sugar, no preservatives, almond flour base, and I added something extra." She opened the box. I actually gasped. A 2-layer cake coated in pale pink frosting, soft and velvety. On top stood a delicate sugar figurine, a tiny princess with a silver crown, her gown swirling like a frozen moment in a fairy tale. Ella pressed both hands over her mouth. "It looks like the ones Daddy used to make." Her voice cracked, small and trembling. Lisa reached down and squeezed her shoulder. "Then let's make him proud, hmm?" With every passing minute, the backyard transformed. The greasy, beer-soaked scene evaporated. In its place grew something beautiful, something stitched together by love, instinct, and urgency. Balloons bobbed gently from the fence posts. The silver happy birthday banner shimmered each time the wind breathed. Kids darted between adults carrying napkins, arranging fruit platters, straightening chairs. Even the sun seemed to soften its glare as it dipped lower. By the time everything was ready, the party looked as if it had always been meant to be this way. Not perfect, but heartfelt. Not polished, but real. When Sandra placed the cake in the center of the newly cleaned table, she clapped her hands sharply. "Everyone, gather around. Time to sing." 8 small voices joined the adults. The sound rose in the air, warm and unforced. "Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Ella. Happy birthday to you." Ella stood in front of the cake, the princess figure glowing in the soft afternoon light. Her lips curved into a smile, the first real one of the day. She closed her eyes tight, made a wish only she knew, and blew with all her might. All 8 candles flickered out at once. Sandra laughed, clapping her hands. Charles murmured, "Strong lungs," with pride. I didn't clap. I stood frozen, because in the moment she smiled up at us, I saw Christopher. Not in her features, they were all mine, but in her expression. The pure, radiant joy he had carried so effortlessly. The joy I'd convinced myself might have died with him. My chest tightened painfully. Tears rushed to my eyes before I could stop them. Ella had gotten her day. Her day? Not Courtney's. Not the drinking crowd's. Hers. After cake came gifts. Each friend lined up proudly, presenting shapes wrapped in bright paper and decorated with crooked bows. Ella opened watercolor sets, a unicorn plushie, glitter bracelets. She squealed at every single one, happiness blooming and blooming across her face, like dawn breaking again and again. I stepped back, needing a moment to breathe. The glow of the scene blurred. Something in my peripheral vision shifted, and I glanced up at the house. Courtney's bedroom window was cracked open. A narrow shadow lingered behind the curtain, watching, not coming outside, not stepping forward to apologize, just watching the party ripple forward without her. When our eyes met through the glass, the curtain twitched and slowly slid shut. A quiet ache settled in my chest, but I didn't chase the feeling, didn't chase her. I didn't owe her that, not today. The party wound down around 6 p.m. Parents returned one by one, smiling at how alive the backyard looked, praising the unique party style we absolutely did not intend to create. Hannah was the last to leave. She hugged Ella fiercely and whispered, "That was the best birthday ever." Ella beamed, cheeks rosy, and for the first time all day, Rebecca Talbot felt the knot of dread unwind. But for Courtney, the day was far from over. By 7 p.m., the 4 adults, me, Mom, Dad, and Courtney, gathered in the living room. Ella sat cross-legged on the floor, playing with her new watercolor set and humming under her breath. I, meanwhile, felt adrenaline draining from my body, leaving behind a hollow exhaustion. A weight that had been building all year seemed to settle into my bones. 8 months of grief, 8 months of running on autopilot. And today had been the breaking point. Charles sat stiffly in his old armchair, hands clasped. Sandra perched beside him, her eyes still soft but fierce. Courtney stood in the middle of the room, arms wrapped around herself like she was cold. This wasn't a conversation anymore. This was Judgment Day. Charles spoke first. His voice was low, steady, and absolute. "Courtney, your mother and I have made a mistake with you." Courtney's chin jerked up. "Dad!" He held up a single finger. Silence. "You're 24, he continued. You live here rent-free. Your mother cooks for you, cleans after you. You don't help. You don't work steady hours. We told ourselves we were protecting you." He shook his head. "We weren't. We were damaging you. Sandra leaned forward, her voice gentler, but no less firm. And today, you took money from your sister, a widow, raising a sick child alone, and you used it to throw a drinking party with strangers. Courtney's eyes filled with tears. I didn't mean... You didn't think, Sandra corrected. For 24 years, we thought loving you meant shielding you. But love isn't shielding, Courtney. Love is responsibility. Then Charles delivered the sentence. You have 30 days to find your own place. Courtney's breath caught. You're kicking me out? You're choosing them over me? Sandra stood up, walked to her daughter, and placed both hands on her shoulders. No, she said softly. We're choosing to help you grow up. We should have done this years ago. Courtney started crying. Real tears now, messy and loud. But even as she sobbed, even as she begged, even as she looked from face to face for someone to rescue her, no one moved. Not out of cruelty, but necessity. A family can love someone so much that they break them without realizing it. Tonight, they stopped the breaking. But growth often begins in pain, and this was only the beginning. Courtney moved out exactly 28 days later. Not 30, 28. I didn't witness the packing, but Mom told me afterward that Courtney had cried through most of it, half from fear, half from the dawning realization that her friends, the ones she'd prioritized over her niece, were nowhere to be found when she needed help lifting a single box. She didn't ask me to help her move. I didn't offer. Some distances need to exist before healing can. But the thing about life is that consequences don't ask permission. They just show up. And they showed up brutally for Courtney. I found out the truth 3 weeks after the disastrous birthday party. Ella and I were driving home from school, the late afternoon sun filtering through the windshield in that soft amber glow that always makes me think of Christopher. Traffic was sluggish, stop and go. Ella hummed in the back seat, swinging her legs, clutching her unicorn plush to her chest. We pulled up to a red light near downtown. I checked the crosswalk timer, scanning the sidewalk absently. Then I froze. There, sitting on the curb with her back against a metal light pole, was Courtney. She looked deflated. Her hair was tangled, clothes wrinkled and mismatched, mascara smudged under her eyes. Her backpack sagged beside her, half unzipped. She stared at the pavement as if the world had shrunk to the cracks between concrete slabs. For a second, I couldn't breathe. Part of me, the sister part, instinctively reached for the door handle. But the other part, the mother part, the wounded part, sat stiffly in place. The part that remembered Ella's voice whispering, "Is it because I'm sick that Aunt Courtney doesn't love me?" The part that remembered Courtney, shrugging and saying that spending money on Ella was pointless. The light turned green. Cars behind us honked. "Mom?" Ella's voice piped up. "Why aren't we going?" I swallowed. "Sorry, honey." My foot hovered over the accelerator. Ella leaned forward, her hand resting lightly on my shoulder. "Mom, it's Aunt Courtney." Her voice dropped even softer. "She looks really sad." Something twisted deep inside me. I kept my eyes on the windshield. "Ella, Aunt Courtney hurt you, very badly." "I know," she whispered. The lane beside us moved, more honking behind us. Ella continued, still soft but suddenly steady. "But Mom, when someone is alone like that, it feels like when Dad died. Like the world left them behind." My heart splintered. I looked at her in the rearview mirror, those big eyes that had grown too mature too quickly, eyes that had seen more pain at 8 than some adults see in a lifetime. "Mom," she asked gently, "shouldn't we help her?" And with that, my daughter, my fragile, resilient, wounded, forgiving daughter, became the compass pointing me toward the road I didn't want to take, but knew I must. I pulled over. When I stepped out of the car and walked toward Courtney, she didn't notice me at first. Not until Ella called softly, "Aunt Courtney?" Courtney's head jerked up. Her eyes, those big brown eyes I grew up protecting, the ones I defended from bullies, the ones I saw sparkle with mischief for 24 years, were swollen, red-rimmed, exhausted. The moment she recognized us, she broke. Not the theatrical sobbing she sometimes did when she wanted attention. Real, gut-wrenching crying, the kind that comes from shame, not anger. She covered her face with her hands, shoulders shaking. "I'm sorry," she choked. "I'm so sorry. Rebecca, I don't know what's wrong with me." She reached for Ella, then stopped, as if afraid she no longer had the right. Ella stepped forward on her own and gently placed her hand on Courtney's back. "I forgive you," my daughter whispered. Courtney's breath hitched like someone had punched the air out of her. She cried harder. It was messy, loud, public, but it was honest. We took her to her apartment, a tiny studio tucked behind a laundromat, the kind of place where the ceiling stains tell their own stories and the only window faces an alley. Courtney unlocked the door, embarrassed. Inside, the small room felt like an entirely different planet from the cushioned, protected world she'd lived in at my parents' house. There was a half-inflated air mattress on the floor, a solitary chair, a pile of unfolded clothes in the corner. No decorations, no TV, no warmth. Just silence. I stood there, taking it all in. This was adulthood stripped bare. Courtney dropped onto the edge of the mattress, wiping her nose with her sleeve. "I called them," she said quietly. "All of them. The people from that party. I asked if I could crash on their couch for a few days. Just until I could—" She swallowed. "Every single one said no." Ella sat next to her and held her hand. Courtney shook her head in disbelief. "I was so stupid, Becca. I kept choosing people who wouldn't choose me back." Her eyes flicked up, watery and desperate. "I don't want to be like that anymore." For the first time in years, I believed her. I sat down beside her. "Then let's start fixing it," I said softly, "one step at a time." When we got up to leave, I paused at the doorway. "Courtney," I said, "we're having dinner at Mom and Dad's this Saturday. Ella and I will be there. If you want to come, you should." Her breath wavered. "I do," she whispered. "I really do." Saturday night came. For the first time in weeks, the whole family sat at one table. The air was thick with something fragile. Not forgiveness yet, but possibility. Sandra brought out her classic meatloaf, the same recipe she'd made since I was 9. Charles sat at the head of the table, quiet as always, but watching everything. Courtney sat across from me, her hands folded in her lap, eyes fixed on her plate. The silence grew, stretching. Then, unexpectedly, Ella broke it. She climbed down from her chair, walked around the table, and stopped beside Courtney. Courtney looked confused, until Ella reached up and gently wiped a tear rolling down her aunt's cheek with her thumb. Courtney's breath hitched. She folded forward, arms wrapping around Ella as she cried into her shoulder. "I'm sorry," she sobbed. "I'm so sorry for what I said, for everything." Ella hugged her back, rubbing her arm softly. "It's okay," she whispered. "You're here now." Sandra wiped her eyes. Charles cleared his throat and pretended to check the window. I just sat there, watching, feeling something quietly shift inside me, like a locked door had opened a crack. That night, after dinner, when we stood at the doorway preparing to leave, Charles placed a heavy hand on my shoulder. "Rebecca," he said quietly, "loving your children means telling them the truth, even when the truth hurts. Spoiling them feels kind in the moment, but the pain comes later, and it comes harder." I nodded. "I understand that now." He squeezed once, firm and warm. "Good," he said, "because she still needs you, and so does that little girl of yours." I looked at Ella, giggling with Sandra as she tried to zip up her coat. Then I looked at Courtney, wiping dishes in the kitchen without being asked for the first time in her life. And I realized he was right. Family isn't perfection. Family is accountability and forgiveness braided together. And sometimes the person who teaches you that most clearly is the child who should never have had to. If someone had told me 8 months ago, when I was sitting on my bedroom floor, staring at Christopher's empty side of the bed, wondering how I was going to raise our daughter alone, that my greatest teacher in healing would be Ella, I would have laughed. But that's the thing about life. It doesn't care about what makes sense. It cares about who you become on the way to surviving. And this final part of our story is where everything finally shifted. Courtney didn't magically become a different person overnight. People don't work that way. She still stumbled, still struggled, still called Mom asking how much detergent to use in the washing machine, still texted me pictures of burnt eggs. But there was something new in her, a softness, a willingness, a humility I'd never seen in 24 years. And that change became the foundation for what came next. 2 weeks after the family dinner, I got a text from Courtney. "Can I see Ella today? Maybe take her to the park? Only if she wants." I read it twice, not out of suspicion, but surprise. In the past, Courtney took Ella places because it was fun or cute. This was different. I showed Ella the message. Her face lit up. "Can we go, Mom?" "Of course," I said, even though a small part of me still trembled with worry. When we arrived at the park, Courtney was already there. Her hair was pulled into a messy bun, no makeup, a thermos of low-sugar lemonade. She had asked me for the recipe. A blanket spread on the grass. 2 sketchbooks and a box of markers, the kind Ella uses for her kidney-friendly art therapy. She looked nervous, like she wasn't sure she deserved this chance. "Hi," she said softly. I I thought we could draw, or sit, or talk, or whatever Ella wants. Ella didn't hesitate. She threw her arms around Courtney, a hug that was small, but so incredibly full. I watched them from a distance as Ella showed her how to draw mermaid tails and Courtney tried, and failed, to blend the marker colors the way Ella did. They laughed. They actually laughed together. And I realized something. Forgiveness wasn't just a gift Ella gave to Courtney. It was a gift she gave to me. Because holding anger is heavy, and I'd been carrying so much. Weeks passed. Courtney came to dinners, helped wash dishes without being asked, checked food labels before offering Ella anything, started working longer shifts, started paying part of her own rent, something she'd never done before. She didn't ask for applause. She didn't ask for sympathy. She was just growing up. And slowly the space between us softened. One evening, after a long day of work, I found Courtney sitting on my parents' porch swing. She wasn't drinking. She wasn't scrolling on her phone. She was staring into the dusk, quiet and thoughtful. Mind if I sit? I asked. She shook her head. We watched the sky go from gold to navy. After a long moment, she whispered, "You know, I think I used to resent you." I blinked. Me? "Yeah," she said, shrugging slightly. "You were always the responsible one. The one Mom and Dad leaned on. The one who had it together." Her voice cracked. "But watching you these last months, I realized how strong you really are. Raising Ella alone, dealing with her kidney stuff, losing Chris." She swallowed. "I thought I was the one who had it hard. Turns out I was just avoiding everything." I felt a sting behind my eyes. Courtney looked at her hands. "And I'm sorry, Becca, for real, for that day, for making you feel alone, for hurting Ella, for being the kind of person who could hurt her." She turned her face toward me, tearful but open. "I'm trying, I really am." I reached over and took her hand. "I know," I said, "and I see it." Her breath shuddered. And that's when I understood something deep. People don't change because you yell at them, or punish them, or shame them. People change when life finally forces them to choose who they want to be next. And when someone chooses better, genuinely, you meet them halfway. That's what family does. A month later, Courtney asked if she could help plan Ella's next birthday. She asked it tentatively, almost fearfully. Before I answered, I looked at my daughter sitting on the living room rug, coloring a page of princess dresses, her tiny body curled over the paper, her little tongue sticking out in concentration. Ella looked up at me and smiled. Not the forced smile she used during hospital visits, not the polite smile she used around classmates. A real smile, soft, safe, hopeful. I turned back to Courtney. "Yes," I said, "you can help." Courtney's eyes filled instantly. But this time her tears weren't from guilt. They were from gratitude. Ella hopped up and ran to her. "Aunt Courtney, can we make a unicorn cake?" Courtney laughed through tears. "We can make two," she said, squeezing her tight. "One for sharing, and one just for you." Ella giggled. And in that moment, the last pieces of the wound started knitting themselves together. So here's what I learned. Love isn't spoiling someone. It isn't enabling. It isn't shielding someone from consequences because it feels easier in the moment. Love is telling the truth, even when it hurts. Love is choosing to forgive, not because the person deserves it, but because you deserve peace. And sometimes, the person who teaches you that lesson and is the one who has the smallest voice in the room. My daughter didn't just get her birthday back that day. She gave our entire family a second chance, and that's where our story ends. What do you think? Were my parents too harsh with Courtney, or was it finally the wake-up call she needed? Did Courtney truly change, or was she just scared of ending up alone? And what does family mean to you? Is it blood? Is it loyalty? Or is it the people who tell you the hard truths and still show up to help you put your life back together? Let me know in the comments. And if this story touched you in any way, don't forget to subscribe and share it with someone who might need a reminder today. Love isn't spoiling. Love is helping someone grow.